Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much, Joss, for joining me today. Can you just start us off by telling us a little bit about you and your role as a holistic sleep coach?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Joss. Yeah, nice to meet you all. I started out my life as a sleep coach after having two little people myself. Unfortunately, without my parents. So I said goodbye to my dad after having my 12-week scan with my first little boy. And I'd already said goodbye to my mum. So that was really hard entering this world with no kind of support network. In terms of having those parents that you really kind of lean on for advice and just being there and so on. So that's my little sob story as such, but it was hard and I learned a lot through that. And I decided that actually I'd had a bumpy ride. We'd been in NICU, we'd had a lot of hospital admissions. I was quite anxious, rightly so. Clearly now I understand that from losing my parents, but it all manifested in trying to sort out control my son's sleep, actually. It's probably what I thought I needed to do. I desperately thought that. And so we were very much that kind of schedule family. We unfortunately did leave my little son to cry for a few minutes. It was so painstaking. But I was that lucky one I got my clockwork kid. I did. But to my detriment, we didn't spend those close cuddles together like I would have loved. My maternity leave felt very structured and was restrained. And then my little girl was born. She was so different. She was not having any of it. And through that, I learned that actually there's a different way here. Things don't have to be controlled. That's not actually what my child needs. And I just learned a completely different way of parenting. So I'm a biologist at background, and it just fueled my kind of science geeky fare. and here I am, and I'm just so delighted to have found you, Lindsay, and the rest of the team. It's a very special program. It is one of a kind, and so I'm so pleased to have followed and become a new holistic grad.
Well, we are so proud of you. And what a journey as well. Trauma and loss and bereavement and, being in special care, medical complexity, all of those layers of challenge that you've overcome. And how would you say all of that kind of feeds into your work now with families on a day-to-day basis?
So most people might tap first into the child. I'm all about that. I really am. For me, it's the parents. I feel like you have to start with the parents. There's so much unsaid so often, and that's what's bubbling up inside all of us. And I think when you're a parent, it's like this thing. As soon as you become a parent, all of a sudden you don't matter anymore. What matters is looking after your little one, and everything that's inside of you, all your insecurities, all the trauma, what you believe in, and so on. It's still important. It's still there, but it's in the background whilst you look after your child. So for me, it's been more about trying to get under the skin of the parents. How can I help them lower their anxiety levels, lift up their parenting efficacy, follow their instincts? Because I didn't do that for my first child. I just thought that I had to do all this other stuff. And I just went against everything I kind of intrinsically believed in. So for me, it's more about looking at what the parents, how they are, how they're feeling after becoming new parents, what's their struggle, and are they communicating between the two of them? So I focus on that very much in this kind of more family-centric care, and then the child absolutely comes through on that. But ultimately, if we can't regulate ourselves, and if we can't be true to ourselves and be who we are around our kids, then it is really, I feel like it doesn't necessarily get the greatest parenting journey and the greatest gifts for our children moving forwards.
And I'm curious because, you've got all of this insight, and you've had all of that personal experience. What was it that made you go from being a parent of 2 children who you kind of had different experiences with to joining the program? What made you kind of join the holistic sleep coaching program and go, do you know what, I'm gonna create a business supporting families with sleep? How did you get there? Tell me.
No idea. No, we've had a huge amount of change for our family recently. And you know what, in a way, because I lost my parents, I still have my wonderful sister around, but it's allowed us to do what on earth we want to do. My previous life was working in PR marketing events in London. I was often seen running between Euston to get on my train, and I was working late nights. I had a lot of travel. It was a dream job in many ways. I absolutely loved it. It was a job of passion, and actually it overtook me being a mum, and I chose to be a mum. And I realized, I had this sort of light bulb moment when actually my little girl needed to go. I knew one morning she wasn't well, and I was pulled into the office, and I didn't feel right about it. But all of a sudden, a few hours later, lo and behold, I had a call saying she'd gone into A&E. And at that moment, I was thinking, you know what, this is not right. And actually, I don't really like this to the same extent I used to. I'm really interested in other things. So I kind of pulled together, found out what I could do with my skill set. So I worked in food PR and nutrition. My background is a biologist, and I've had 2 children. So put the puzzles together.
Obviously.
Bit of a sneak peek. All my friends are very well aware of the amount of fixation and fascination I had, still have, going through having children and so on. So it felt like it was a real kind of a joining of different pieces of puzzles of all these things that have happened in my life. They feel like they're kind of coming together. I very much feel like this is a great mixture of skill sets. You have to be a little bit of a jack of all trades to an extent, but you have to maintain your integrity and be true to the science, and be a little bit of a counselor as well, be kind and compassionate, but also be able to fit some pieces of puzzles together.
So you are a problem solver, you like puzzles, you're a self-confessed nerd. You could have just set up a business. You had that background in PR. What made you decide to join the holistic sleep coaching program? And did you have any doubts or worries about that at the time?
Yeah, I mean, you can't do something if you don't love it, right? You can't just set up a random business here, there, and everywhere. Like, it's just not me. Like, you really have to chuck yourself into things and do it because you love it and you're fascinated by it. And that's why I wanted to go into this work. I felt deeply that I had been firsthand touched by this in so many ways, but it was the noise that I was surrounded by that guided me to go down that sleep training route with my youngest. The kind of put him down on a rug, it's fine, just leave him, just let him sort himself out. And I don't think that's right, but I must, because I feel like I'm being judged right now. And I think that the more that I realized there was so much more to this, and actually it's simple. It's actually about following our parenting instincts and just being a human being and kind and so on. The more I realized about that, the more accounts on Instagram and so on that I started following. And it was like this light bulb moment where I realized that the ones that weren't feeling comfortable about this were right, because it's backed up in science and evidence. And that's it can be a difficult path to walk, really. But I wanted to feel like, do you know what? I've got my background in PR and so on. I know how to be bold and to be brave with that. Normally promoting other people, I've got to be honest. But I felt quite driven that actually we need to normalize and dial down on the other noise and up on our science-based noise that actually is nurturing. And there's very few programs that were doing that. If I'm honest, I did. I always shop around. I'm a Yorkshire girl, so always making sure that I've looked at every single option out there, and the ones that painted this perfect picture of a business life to me didn't sing true. If it sounds too good to be true, it often is. It's one of the old fables that actually is right most of the time,
Yeah. Sorry, I just lost my spot. Let me just regroup my brain. I think we decided we weren't going to ask that question about what personal and business challenges you were facing, didn't we? Just trying to remind myself. Yeah, I'll skip that one. And a single obstacle you've had before joining the program, I think, is also irrelevant to you as well, isn't it? Okay, so that's fine. Let's just move on. So tell me then, how has the program changed the way that you now manage your life? I take it you're no longer in your corporate job and on that commuter train. How has doing the program changed your business? What you're able to do for families. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's like a massive shift. I've swapped trains and running with my laptop out for dropping my little girl and boy at nursery and school, respectively, and having a stroll on the beach. It's changed my life in the way that I can actually breathe again, and the work that I'm doing, I really believe in it. The previous life that I had, I loved, because I love the subject area and I love the people that I was working with. This is different. I'm now speaking with families. I know I'm making a difference. Previously, my winning as such was seeing some articles in the newspaper, and so now it's watching parents quite often break down because you've said something that really connects with them, it really resonates, or it's put right something that they felt they had done that was wrong. It's so much more than I ever dreamed was actually possible. With that comes some weight. It's a lot to bear every day, so I'm trying to learn on that a little bit, and that's why the program's fabulous. You've got such a fantastic peer group, people that we can go to kind of share experiences. We're all learning constantly, and that's what I love. I think that is one of the most important things that I've learned, is that although it's terrifying, sometimes we just want to have all the answers and just say, oh, this is the problem. Here's your answer. It's not like that. It's a lot of trial and error, and the sleep world, child psychology world, all that is constantly moving. We're all learning all the time. And when you get your head around the fact that you may not have the answer straight away, or we need to kind of try something and see if it works, that's at the point where you begin to think, okay, I can relax in what I'm doing now. I am doing families justice. I'm doing the right way and trying my best and having success.
Amazing. So you have this amazing business where you're supporting families, you're making a huge difference to them, and you've ditched the commuting grind. Would you say there was a particular kind of moment, because obviously it's hard setting up a new business from scratch, but was there like a moment when you were like, oh, this is beginning to feel like I'm getting there, there's an ease that's beginning to come? Would you say that there was a moment that became something you were consciously aware of?
Yeah, and I'm still getting there. I think this is a long journey all around. I have a huge amount of imposter syndrome. I think it's just ingrained in me. I don't, I really very much struggle to understand why someone would think that I've done a good job, and so that is just ingrained in me. I'm always wanting to make sure that I've done completely a million times better than I should have done. But from the sleep side of things, where it all started to click was in one of our sessions, and this idea that came around of why things don't come along quickly and then always fit into place so easily. Again, backed up in some good old studies, and that was the study that's looking at 6 to 8 weeks for behavioural change. And at that point, when we were talking about that and saying, it's not going to suddenly happen overnight, it takes time. And if it takes 6 to 8 weeks in adults, what's it going to take in children? So at that point, all of a sudden, I felt like sometimes the vibe is it's a bit more of a lighter, airy-fairy approach, let's be honest. But it's when you have parents that you're working with and you're really expectation managing here, telling them, let's lay these foundations, these gentle, responsive foundations, and let's do some, good sleep work, but let's not be intervention central. And I promise, let's just give it some time. Let's give it 6 weeks. Let's see how it goes. And even at that point, you're saying inside yourself, you're thinking, oh, please let this work. And especially when you're first starting out, that is a lot of hope to carry on. But the work that we're doing is evidence-based. The suggestions we make are evidence-based. And lo and behold, I had about 4 clients that I was working with, roughly start time was similar. And lo and behold, around the 6-week mark, I'm getting all these, oh my goodness, we've had so much progress and I just feel so much lighter and so on. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Science is playing out here again. Yeah. And at that point, that was my kind of light bulb moment to stop doubting myself, know that what we're suggesting works, but also it's not going to work straight away.
Yeah. So it's around kind of not just managing your clients' expectations, but also managing your own internal expectations of your results, and not kind of connecting rapid results with success, but actually looking at more, you're on a journey with your clients, aren't you? And beginning to see that journey as the success. That's amazing. And would you say that there was a particular family or a client that has just had an amazing result that you're really proud of recently?
Yeah. There's a couple actually. I tend to work with, I don't know, I've definitely ended up with just some wonderful, wonderful clients that, again, as I was talking about before, and where my kind of vibes sit, and it is about the parents commonly. So I've been very, very fortunate to work with some very interesting and really difficult situations as well. One client that I was working with recently, she was an adult and child psychotherapist. So hello, imposter syndrome. I was thinking, Christy, that's a lot actually for me to work as a non-medical background person. Felt like a lot of weight on my shoulders from so many different angles on how I conducted my consults, to how I was selecting recommendations and writing them out and verbalizing them, and then following up with her all along through that as well. She held attachment to the highest degree of her parenting, and her child was waking every hour, a little 10-month-old, and it was the second child. So a lot of weight on my shoulder there. She's now, again, 6-8 weeks on from working with her. She's seeing some real progress, and she's been so grateful. And her child is now waking up commonly just once or twice a night, which we know from the evidence base is totally normal. And yes, she still has her bumpy patches and so on, but it was having her on a professional level praise and validate the work that I was doing, that my imposter syndrome is still way above me. It always will be, but it's tapped away at it. It's definitely tried to crack it apart a bit. So I was, I felt a real sense of kind of pride and that actually I can do this.
Yeah, amazing. And it's just so wonderful, isn't it, when you're able to kind of bust through your own glass ceiling in a way, which it sounds like has happened for you. Was there anything that surprised you about the program or the support you received?
I didn't think I'd be really going back to university. Oh my goodness. I worked myself to the ground because you need to, because how can you deal with families without really understanding the science of what we're trying to do, what's behind it all? I felt actually it's a serious position. It's a big thing. What we're doing matters. And then the program itself really kind of illustrated that. I think when you're having the initial chats and so on, it talks about, program length and the assignment that you need to do and so on. So do the other courses. But when I tapped into this one, I think just on the first module that was strongly on attachment, and then the deeper reading and the literature, the papers and the clinics that we kind of find ourselves in, and the people on the course and their backgrounds, that I'm in the minority really, that I've come from somewhere that isn't linked to childcare or maternity support or medicine. There's not so many of me as such, and so you're amongst some really, really professional people with fantastic backgrounds, very inspirational. And so I think I felt like, my gosh, what have I landed into? But the more I did it, the more I was just on this journey, and I was fascinated by it, and I found it really hard because of the weight that I felt was on my shoulders for making sure that I was going into a career with the right credentials. That was really important to me. I really wanted to support families knowing that I was qualified to do that. So yeah, I think that for me, it was the chunkiness and the fabulousness of the course that I hadn't really understood, to be honest, before I started doing it.
Yeah, sounds like for you the weight of it was around your own sort of desire to do this well, to do this right. And it sounds like your imposter syndrome was the one telling you that everybody else was way more qualified than you, which is not true. But there's a theme here, isn't there, Joss? So beyond your business, then, you've talked a little bit about, how your life has changed, but how has doing the program and becoming a sleep coach impacted your personal life, or your confidence in who you are as well? Perhaps even just reflecting on your own parenting journey and how different it was between your son and your daughter. How's all that kind of played out?
It's been a really big ride. I think that's the other thing I didn't really expect from the course, in a great way. It's not to dissuade at all. Actually, it's been kind of quite a soul searching journey. And actually, I think it's made me kind of unpack a lot of the stuff that I had going on before, and reasons why I clung on to trying to find schedules and so on, and actually understanding the weight of the noise that is out there on non-responsive training. And I think, gosh, how different my journey might have been had I have actually surrounded myself with the right people. And they're not even people that I know, people online and the right Instagram accounts and so on. And I feel very much that that's my role now, to try and amplify the noise to follow our instincts, because I wish I'd have done that. So I've done a lot of unpacking as such, and just feeling like actually it's okay, and I've boosted what I lost with my son in so many other ways, and so that I found very important. And we've had a journey in our house, even between my marriage with my partner as well, and just getting him on board. And actually, it all goes back to the good old books and the science and so on. When you can really prove that what you're trying to do is evidence-based and there's a reason why, we're not being permissive here, actually. We're being responsive, and responsive is totally cool. It's trying to educate also my household continually, and I love that. It's really nice that we should be learning parents, and we should learn from others and be inspired about how we can change a generation, really. And it does sound a bit weighty and a bit I don't know, but it does sound a bit full on, doesn't it? But I have really found it's really interesting that you can nurture, you can really nurture little souls, and we can pull forward and have a better generation and a better generation and a better generation, so we don't have the ones before us that were finding life kind of hard, and it got brought out on our children, and training up little self-sufficient robots and so on. And it's just really nice to feel like the science is telling us it's okay to nurture our emotions and to show our emotions and name them and tame them, and it's okay. So I think it's been quite a journey for me, but at the end of the day, the journey has kind of always said, just crack on and be who you are. And it's nice I get to do that in a career now.
Amazing. Sounds like there's been a lot of not just reflection, but also a lot of self-forgiveness and grace that you've been able to find for yourself. It's not about kind of beating yourself over the head for a parenting experience that was perhaps less responsive initially, but it's about being willing to learn and grow and change. And good old Maya Angelou, when we know better we do better, don't we? And you're living and breathing that, aren't you, I guess? But I'm wondering, what about your business kind of side? You've talked a lot about the heart and soul of your business, which is wonderful. A lot of people, before they start this program, they might have some doubts about, oh my gosh, I've actually got a pretty well paid, nice, reliable job. I've got a pay slip that comes in, lands on my doormat nice and reliably every month. I'm not sure people do have pay slips landing on their doormat anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, have you been able to get to a point where you're like, phew, I've been able to replace my nice, substantive, reliable income with an income that also allows me to do this work that I love in a flexible, work-life balanced way?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Especially if you've moved from having, an employment, a steady ship. And in a way, what I was trying to do was to provide more of a kind of a steady path for our house and to pick up our children and all that. And I've definitely achieved that. But moving away from not having a paycheck, as you say, every month, that's daunting. It is really daunting, because it layers on not having your paycheck, and also the weight that we've talked about as well that can be on your shoulders with clients, and taking money off people is a whole new mindset than being paid and just doing what you're good at. It's very different, you know. It's a lot of kind of you have to really be so self-assured that what you're doing is credible and so on. And I feel like it is really important to follow the advice from Emma and yourself, and to work for free at first is really important. And I found it was important because the process can be longer. You don't need to worry as much about doing things in a business sense in exactly the right way. And you can really have some great learnings along the way as well. And, you know, you do get some fantastic testimonials. So I think I found it quite difficult moving away from having this solid paycheck. Absolutely. But I found it became easier the more clients that I was working with, and starting out in the recommended routes that you had, that was to start for free and then do discounted packages and so on. And it just allows you to kind of slowly and gradually build to the point where you are having some nice, I wouldn't say it ever feels so, what's the word? It doesn't ever feel so constant and so secure at the moment, you know, when you're just starting out as well, that you're going to have this income. But what I have built is the belief that I can get the income as well, and that the income I get, I have earned, and I was qualified, and I was a credible person to do this for these clients. So it's a little bit kind of, I think when you're first starting out, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And I feel like the most important thing to do, if you were coming from a background of having this paycheck all the time, and holiday leave and all these things, is just to take it slowly. And if you can keep your previous profession, great. If there's something else that you can do as well. So I also help out in our local area, just to be able to get out a little bit as well and care for the elderly. I find that has really helped to, in the early days, to have something that you know is also going to continually come in to your bank really helps, so you can still maintain your integrity and your credibility in the way that you sell in your services. Because to me, I will never be desperate. Even if I am crawling around on the floor for money, that is not who I'm about. I want to make sure that the services I provide are credible and the best that I can possibly give. So if a little bit of advice would be for those who are starting out but they can't keep their full-time job, what can you do just to keep some form of steady income? Because it really does help you not feel so panicked that you do things in the wrong way.
Yeah, really good advice, because you're still very, very new, aren't you? You finished the program just a few months ago, and you have built this successful business, but it's early days. And I think that's important, isn't it? To be realistic about, you can't just qualify and then instantly have this incredible business. It is something that takes time. You need to work at it. You have to expect to work hard to get to where you want to be, which is something that sounds like you've really embraced that.
Yeah. And we can't just get stuff handed to us on a plate. It's just, as much as you want it, and as frustrating as it is, you have to always remember that. And so, that's been a big mantra of mine when we first started out on this.
Well, you're underselling yourself, because I know you are. You're doing brilliant things, and you are growing very, very quickly in your business. So we are very proud of you. Now, if you hadn't joined the program, where do you think you would be right now? How would life have panned out for you, do you think?
Oh gosh, that's like a massive question. Probably still running off a train, or to get a train with my laptop out, I would imagine, and missing my child's bedtime. I think it's actually quite a sad story that would have been. You know, let's be honest, it is hard being around our children all the time as well, but I'm never going to regret that. I'm never going to sit back and think, you know, as my mum and dad did, they didn't get to enjoy their retirement. They never got there. And I never asked them, but I do wonder, what would there be something they would have done differently? You know, what would have been that thing that they would have changed? And I don't know, but what I don't want mine to be is that I missed this amazing bit of their childhood, and watching them grow up and all that. And this course and this new life, yes, it is a juggle. And yes, I might have to open my laptop more in the hours that I would have just been offline, chilling with my husband. I'm never, ever going to think to myself, wow, it's a bad decision to pick your kid, to change your career and pick your kids up from school. So I don't know, where would I have been? I just would have been doing the same old stuff of what I knew well. And I loved working in food, and the people that I worked with. But it was about that. It was never about my family. So I don't know. It's really, it's an odd one to kind of think about.
Yeah, kind of a sliding doors moment, isn't it? But I'm so glad you found something that like meets your kind of cerebral need to dig into something that fascinates you, but also gives you that work-life balance. Because it sounds like...
I love them. I'd have a dog. I'm actually working on that with my husband.
It's so embarrassing. I wish they wouldn't do that, but I have not yet figured out a way to train them to not bark when the postman comes. I feel like putting a sign on the end of the driveway saying, "For God's sake, don't come up the driveway, please. Reactive dog alert." I'll just wait till they shut up. The postie will leave, and then oh God. That was right in the middle of that sentence, wasn't it? So I'm probably going to have to repeat that. Sorry, person editing. Maybe they could pick up halfway through. I can't remember what I was saying, but I think it was a fairly smooth segue from the last question to what I was about to say, which is pretty much the last question. Thanks, dog. I'm hoping they can just pick that. Yes, sit down and shut up. Anyway, I really can't remember what I was saying. My brain isn't working. Not quite as bad as I was on that coaching call yesterday. I felt like I'd parked my brain at the door. God.
You always say that, but everyone's following you. I know exactly what you meant. Yeah.
I did not feel articulate. Anyway, right. Let's just try and summarize that again. I'm so pleased that you've managed to find something that kind of scratches that kind of cognitive need, that itch to dig into the science of something and, you know, really exercise your brain, but also gives you that work-life balance. It sounds like the priority was always on work before, and yeah, I'm delighted for you that you've managed to find a way to meet your family's needs, but also dozens and dozens of other families. I know you're doing some wonderful work. So just to wrap up, what would you say to somebody, perhaps somebody who is just like you, who sees themselves in your story and is thinking of joining the program, but they're just not sure it's the right fit, or they're not sure they can make a go of this, or they have some other doubt? What would you say to them?
Goodness. I think it sounds really corny, but if it really resonates with you, if the noise that we are banging out really resonates to the point where you feel almost like your blood boils a little bit from the other stuff, and those kind of mythical or old school tales, whether you went down, it doesn't matter which route you went down. It matters like how you feel in response to the noise that we are making. I think if you feel some real passion coming through there, then that's the place to start. It's following the graduates, following the amazing people setting up the program, and Lindsay, what you stand for and what you've done, and then other people like Dan Siegel, for example, and reading up on his work that he's been doing. You know, if that resonates with you, as opposed to you thinking that it's a different parenting style that wins, then I think that's the first place to start, because everything comes much easier when you love it, when you agree with it, when you want to know more. It's really hard if you're doing something that you just don't particularly believe in. And then just doing a bit of deeper reading and connecting in with people will really help. And just trying to work out, is your life going to be able to be a bit more flexible in terms of everything? It becomes a kind of a I'm not saying it's not a juggle. It's like a nice dance, like a foxtrot or something. Like you need to just chill and be able to chill and accept that you'll be doing pockets of work here, there, and everywhere, but it allows you to be present with your family. And if you're able to kind of adopt that mindset of being able to not have a 9 to 5 in the same way, because of course parents, they're not available 9 till 5 either. So if you can kind of accept that you're going to have a bit of a kind of a different lifestyle to your benefit, then and it does feel like it's going to be to your benefit, then great.
Thank you so much. Wise words. And if anybody wants to get in touch, either to pick your brain about the program, or if they're like, oh my gosh, I need you to support me with my family, this sounds like it is exactly what I want for my little people, how can they get in touch with you?
I like to say very easily, to be honest. I hate that being a boundary by having, lots of hurdles to go through. So on my website, which is wholesomesleepers.com, I have a button there where you can get in touch very easily. I've got my email details there too. And on my social channels as well, then I'm quite prompt in the response, whether it's a DM or they've kind of come to me to book in a session, have a free chit chat session as such, just to check that my vibe, what I believe in, and the way that I work sits with the parents that I work with. So I offer that for free. So I've got a number of ways that people can reach out without putting hands in pockets at first as well. But I'm hoping that the kind of content that I put forward on my social channels is enough to kind of paint that picture for who I am and what my business ethos is, as well as that kind of first meet and greet session as such before we speak directly.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You are doing wonderful work, and it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very, very much for your time, and thank you everybody for watching today.
Cheers, Lindsay.
Right, I'm going to end that.